All right, folks, it is time for our Crime Time segment. And what we do this time of the program each and every night is bring in a couple of law enforcement experts, people who have done the job to get their insight and perspective into some of the stories happening around the nation that we're highlighting tonight. Joining me tonight, retired police lieutenant and host of Blue Lives Radio, Randy Sutton. Randy has over 3 decades of experience in law enforcement. He has served the Princeton, New Jersey PD and with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. He's a spokesperson for the American Council on Public Safety, and he helps wounded officers and their families through his foundation, The Wounded Blue. Also with us, former gang homicide detective Donald Schweitzer. Donald was a police officer for 10 years. He's investigated gang homicides as a detective, served as a member of the SWAT unit, and worked various narcotics assignments, homicide reconstruction, and trained fellow police officers as a firearm instructor. Great to have you both here tonight, Randy and Donald. This first one is a story and a video that's gone viral. Most people tonight have seen it on their news feed somewhere. A man dies after being detained by the police. This is out of Minneapolis.
Please, I can't breathe. Please, man. Please, man.
Well, you got him down, man. Let him breathe, at least, man.
I can't breathe.
I've been trying to help out. So you breathe a little bit more. Neck, man. One of my homies died. You went back home.
I'm about to die to see.
Relax.
Man, I can't breathe my face. Just get up.
What do you want?
I can't breathe.
All right. The big question tonight is, was there another way to handle this situation? You got the knee on the neck, people saying let him breathe, asking to breathe. He ended up dying at the hospital. The other part of this is the 4 officers involved now, apparently tonight we're getting reports that they're gone from the force. So Randy, let me start with you. Was there another way to handle this situation?
There's a lot to this story, and most of it we do not know. We have that piece of videotape. It does not show what transpired to have the use of force even take place. We don't know. There's reports that they were waiting for an ambulance because of some behavior of his that they thought he needed medical attention. So I don't really know exactly what happened here, and there's all officers were terminated. But here's the rest of the story on that. This is Minneapolis Police Department. You can't just fire people. You have to conduct an investigation, and then they have due process. What happened was the mayor of Minneapolis just looked at this videotape and then fired the officer, ordered the chief to fire them. That's against their rights. Now, of course, we don't even know what the cause of death was. Very often in instances where there is a physical struggle that takes place, it could be from a narcotics issue. It could be from some type of medical issue. There's so much we don't know, and that's why I caution that we are come to judgment here over a few seconds of videotape.
Don Schweitzer, was there another way to handle this situation?
Yeah, Vinny, I think that there was. I do agree with Vinny that these officers are entitled to a full investigation. And like Randy, I don't know what the real cause of death is. But I would say this, is that once a person is arrested, once they're under control, there's no need to put a knee on somebody's neck. That's very dangerous. Right. People could get, rendered unconscious. They could die. And that's not police training. The knee in the middle of the back, if the man is still struggling until somebody comes to help, that would be more appropriate. But again, these officers deserve an appropriate investigation, and I would like to know more before I actually weigh in and be an armchair quarterback on this.
Absolutely, and it's a story we'll continue to follow here on Court TV. Of course, today it's all about the video, but the investigation will continue and our coverage will continue. Next story comes to us from KMGH in Denver. A frontline nurse has two of her own vehicles stolen.
I just would never think that this would happen to me.
The pain 26-year-old Dahlia Tresner feels isn't only about losing her car and motorcycle.
It's not fair to take something away from someone that they work so hard for.
Out of high school, Dahlia joined the Navy. There, she saved up money and bought herself a motorcycle.
My brother helped put lights on it, helped me put an exhaust on it.
She left the Navy to continue going to school while working as a surgical tech in Aurora. Because of the coronavirus, she moved from the operating room to help COVID-19 patients.
It takes a toll on you. I sat with a few COVID patients, and you just really just sit and watch over them.
More than a week ago, she went into the secured garage at the Alex and Cherry Creek apartments and her motorcycle was gone.
I initially thought that maybe they have towed it because I parked kind of where like the bicycle racks are.
But when she went to get in her car on another level, it was nowhere to be found.
I just didn't know what to do.
Denver police found the car last Thursday, and Dahlia says she'll be getting it from impound next week with no idea what condition her car is in. Still, no sign of her bike.
It's really like heartbreaking. I love my motorcycle and I love my car, and I've saved up and done all this on my own.
Puzzled by how someone could take everything from her when she's risked her life to give back.
All right, how likely is it that the suspect is someone she knows, or is it possible that you could have two vehicles stolen and it's just some sort of coincidence? Donald, let me start with you.
Yeah, it could be somebody that knows her. Could be somebody that lives within the apartment complex, somebody who lives down the street, just a casual acquaintance. And, the real story here is the thieves obviously didn't care about who they were violating here. This is a person that's serving others, and this is very typical. They don't think about who they're hurting and who they're violating. This poor woman is without her vehicles, spending all those hours serving others and trying to protect people. She comes home and her items are stolen, and it's just horrific.
Randy, do you think there's any connection here, or is this just a really bad coincidence that she's victimized twice?
I'm not a believer in coincidences. There's a couple things that questions that pop up here. What was the method of stealing these vehicles? Was a key utilized? If there was someone that had access to these keys, that would certainly indicate some personal relationship that might have played a role in this. But for both vehicles to be stolen, that seems pretty personal to me. But here's what really pops out of the screen to me on this is the frustration and the heartbreak of what happens when people steal from other people. They call these nonviolent crimes. And even if the doer gets caught, the chances of them serving time is minimal because they don't take property crimes as very serious. But look at the heartbreak here. And that is exactly, I believe, what this story is about, heartbreak.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a level of violation, but when you're under the emotional strain, Donald, of going through what she's going through, right, as a surgical tech, she's in there, she's helping, and you've got to deal with that all day long. And you're a young person and you're trying to make it in life and you're so proud of your accomplishments and being able to buy your own things. And then you're violated this way. It's frustrating. Do these cases get the attention that other cases get, or are they just difficult to solve? You just wait for something to turn up?
Well, Benny, I think that these cases sometimes get the attention they need. One thing that really works is active surveillance. Criminals tend to keep returning to the areas where they're successful, especially when it comes to burglaries and thefts like this. So if there were a really good surveillance on this area, and these weren't people that were really personal to her, but were strangers, more likely than not, they see this as a hotbed and they're going to be coming back And officers are successful that way. Unfortunately, though, there's not enough officers going around the world to be surveilling every parking lot everywhere. And so, there are people that are victimized like this. And this poor woman, I think that she looks like she's got a lot of character. She's going to go back to work, but you just wonder how she's going to be able to do it by being so traumatized.
All right, folks, when we come back, more crime time, including a wild chase down in Volusia County, Florida. Sheriff's deputies using every one of their tools to track down a couple of suspects.
I think this is infuriating, and it's also terrifying for students on campus who are victims, who will be victims in the future.
Another one of the stories we're covering tonight in our Crime Time segment. Still with us, Randy Sutton, police lieutenant, retired, and host of Blue Lives Radio, and Donald Schweitzer, former gang homicide detective, who is now also an attorney. Randy, Donald, great to still have you with us. This next story, though, let's take a look at this one from KSTU in Salt Lake City, Utah. A university officer retains explicit evidence photos.
Days before Lauren McCluskey was killed in 2018, the officer assigned to her extortion case is accused of saving and showing off explicit photos submitted as evidence.
I think this is infuriating, and it's also terrifying for students on campus who are victims, who will be victims in the future.
The independent investigation comes 2 days after the allegations were reported by our partners at the Salt Lake Tribune. University Police Chief Rodney Chapman ordered the probe after expressing concerns over the thoroughness of an internal investigation prior to his arrival.
The fact that they're only now looking into changing those gaps speaks to the fact that the university seems more concerned about, the fact that this is coming to light and being accountable versus actually really prioritizing student safety.
Student advocates who organized the group Unsafe U after McCluskey's murder called for more police oversight and training. They also ask for accountability for the officer who now works for Logan PD.
This isn't an isolated incident. It's indicative of a larger cultural and systematic problem within the department.
Okay, if this officer actually retained these explicit photos that the victim was being extorted with, should this officer still be on the job? Randy Sutton, let me go to you first. This is one that has a lot of people upset out there in Utah.
I know it does, and there's something very unfortunate happening here, and that is that they're not being told the truth about what took place. I actually had a conversation this afternoon with the attorney for this officer, and his name is J.C. Jensen, and J.C. told me quite a different account, including the fact that he did not retain these photographs. What happened was he was conducting the investigation into the victim, claiming that she was being extorted with photographs and from an ex-boyfriend. Well, the police department, the university police department, does not. They ask the police officers to use their own phones to collect evidence. So the victim in this case sent an email to the officer with these photographs. Here's what happened. When he received them, he did show them to his supervisor. And it was that supervisor, because he was asking for advice on what he should do with these photographs because of the evidentiary portion of what they represented. That's what took place. This officer, by the way, was already cleared in an internal investigation into this. It wasn't until this newspaper article and the subsequent story that we saw that caused all this furor. But the fact of the matter is, this officer was already cleared.
All right, so Donald, based upon that rebuttal to this story and what actually happened here, let me put this at you. Should police change the protocol and not have officers use their personal phones?
Yeah, I think there could be a lot of loss if that's the case. Most departments are probably going to be mindful of the fact that officers have their phones on duty, and if it's the only way to receive evidence, I would hate to see a crime go unsolved if the officer couldn't use his or her own phone. There may be a better way of dealing with it than to, accuse somebody of showing off photographs. Possibly the officer can bring his phone in and erase everything on his phone afterwards. I think that the real question, though, Vinny, is let's assume that an officer did do what was accused, which I don't think was here based on Randy's statement. But if somebody's walking around showing off photographs from a crime scene, that's in the officer's possession that shouldn't be there, should be in the evidence locker, well, that's a violation of the officer's duty. That's a different story. But in this day and age, when you're in court or you're out in the field, you're going to receive photographs on your phone and you're going to use them to your advantage. And I don't think that there's any real reason to control that.
Gotcha. Next story comes to us from Volusia County, Florida. Spike strip, canine, and drone lead to an arrest.
Here it comes, coming to you, it's coming to you. Got it, got it, got it. Off-ramp on Jackson right now. They're coming our way. Hey, lock it down! Come on.
Your left, we got people moving. White shirt and a blue shirt. Hands are coming up, hands are coming up.
Coming back out of the highway, y'all. Mobile contact now, we're trying to get him out. Get him coming out.
But just take your time because they came right through there. Yeah. And there's a wad of cash, a cigarette, and another glove. Okay. And I just don't know how much more dope is out here. I don't want them ingesting anything. See if we search this area by hand. Keep coming. Yeah, I got a glove right here.
It's right there.
You got it?
Yep.
Nice. Good job, buddy. Good boy. Glove right there. Money right there.
Yeah.
Cigarette by Mike's left foot. Yeah. And then on the other side of that log there is the firearm. Oh boy. Oh boy. Good search. Oh boy.
All right, Volusia County Sheriff's Office. What goes into coordinating an arrest like this? I mean, you got the chopper in the sky, you got the spike strips, all this is happening. Donald Schweitzer, let me start with you.
Well, Vinny, the best thing that coordinates officers like this is a lot of training and a lot of experience. What you see in cases like this is that all the officers know their role. They know not to overstep their role. For example, the guy who's in the lead isn't going to be passed up by another car. And everybody's going to allow the canine officers to get in when the time is necessary. So there's a lot of coordination based mostly on experience because you really can't replicate this in a police academy setting. But in this place, which seems like it's kind of rural, it's very impressive how they all came together and were able to capture these people who bailed out in a very unfortunate area for them. Now, the last thing I would say about this is you notice that the officers were very calm when they were doing their work, particularly the guy who announced that there was a bailout, and the guy who's looking at the evidence. They were very calm, and it shows that they had a lot of experience, and that's the reason why you see these guys so coordinated.
Randy, you got the eye in the sky, coordinate with what's going on the ground. It could be a very tense situation. You don't know who these guys are and what weapons they may have, but everything was coordinated perfectly here.
Oh yeah, I love it when a story has a happy ending like this one did. So we saw great coordination, and what we also saw the technology in use here. You know, with drones coming on board, they can be very, very effective. They're much cheaper, less expensive to operate than helicopters. Although, you know, thank God for the air units because they do amazing work. The canine, the utilization of that tool, as well as the spike strips, all of these are part of the repertoire of modern law enforcement. And what we actually saw here was great policing. It was professional as could be, and really, this is like this is a happy ending. You saw that there was a weapon found. This could have ended very differently had circumstances changed in very slight ways.
Randy Sutton, Donald Schweitzer, always great to have you guys on the show. Appreciate it.
Thank
My
you,
pleasure.
Dan.